Mark and I had been married for 5 years. To outsiders, we were the perfect couple. We had a beautiful home, stable jobs, and a love story that seemed straight out of a fairy tale. But beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. I started to feel a growing sense of emptiness, a void that Mark, with his predictable routines and gentle nature, couldn't seem to fill. I craved excitement, spontaneity, something to make me feel alive again. That's when Alex came into my life. He was a new colleague at my firm, charismatic and full of life. He saw the restlessness in my eyes and mirrored it with his own. Our conversation started innocently enough, over coffee and project deadlines, but soon they deepened into something more intimate, something dangerous. We talked about our dreams, our disappointments, the things we felt were missing from our lives. With Alex, I felt seen in a way I hadn't in years. The line blurred one rainy afternoon. We were working late, the office was empty, and the air was thick with unspoken tension. One touch led to another, and before I knew it, I had crossed a boundary I never thought I would. The guilt was immediate and suffocating, but it was tangled with a thrilling rush of adrenaline. I was living a double life. At home, I was Mark's devoted wife. Outside, I was a different person. Someone reckless and alive, exploring a forbidden connection with Alex. This went on for months. The lies piled up, each one heavier than the last. I'd invent late-night work sessions, weekend conferences, and dinners with friends. Mark, bless his trusting heart, never suspected a thing. He'd wait up for me, a warm meal on the table, and ask about my day. Each time he did, a knife of guilt twisted in my gut. I was betraying the kindest, most decent man I had ever known. The affair was a roller coaster. The highs were intoxicating, filled with secret glances, stolen moments, and the thrill of the forbidden. But the lows were devastating. The constant fear of being caught, the web of lies I was spinning, and the crushing weight of my deceit were eating me away from the inside. I couldn't sleep. I lost weight. The vibrant woman Alex was drawn to was slowly fading, replaced by a hollow, anxious shell. One evening I came home to find Mark sitting in the dark, my phone in his hand. My heart stopped. He had seen the messages from Alex. The look on his face was not anger, but a profound, heart-shattering sadness. There was no shouting, no accusations, just a quiet, broken question. Why? In that moment, the entire fantasy I had built with Alex crumbled into dust. Seeing the pain I had inflicted on Mark, the man who had given me nothing but love and loyalty, was the wake-up call I so desperately needed. The thrill of the affair was nothing compared to the agony of breaking his heart. I ended it with Alex the very next day. It was a clean break, no lingering goodbyes. Then came the hardest part, facing the wreckage of my marriage. Mark was devastated. He moved into the guest room, and our home, once filled with warmth and laughter, became a cold, silent space. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by my sobs and his heavy, heartbroken sighs. I begged for his forgiveness. I promised to change, to do whatever it took to earn back his trust. I told him I wanted to start fresh, to build a new foundation for our marriage, one based on honesty and commitment. He was hesitant, wounded, but a part of him still loved me. After weeks of painful conversations, he agreed to try. He agreed to give us, a second chance. We started going to therapy. We learned to communicate again, to talk about the difficult, uncomfortable truths we had been avoiding. I confessed my feelings of emptiness, and he admitted his own fears of not being enough for me. It was raw. It was painful, but for the first time in a long time it felt real. I dedicated myself completely to healing our relationship. I cut all ties with my old life, even changing jobs to create a completely fresh start. Slowly, painstakingly, we began to rebuild. There were good days, filled with flickers of our old affection. A shared smile, a gentle touch, a joke that landed just right. It felt like we were finding our way back to each other, piece by broken piece. I thought we were making it. I thought the past was finally behind us. But the past has a way of lingering, like a ghost in the corners of your home. A few months into our reconciliation, I noticed a change in myself. I would be cooking dinner, and a memory of a secret lunch with Alex would flash in my mind. We'd watch a movie, and I'd remember watching the same one with him. These were not fond memories. They were intrusive, unwelcome echoes of my betrayal. The ghost of Alex, of the person I was with him, was still there. I found myself comparing Mark to him. Mark's quiet stability, which I now cherished, would sometimes feel dull next to the phantom memory of Alex's impulsive charm. I hated myself for it. I was a guest in my own life, haunted by a past I had sworn to leave behind. I started having nightmares. In them, I was always caught between the two men, forced to choose, and I would wake up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding with a familiar toxic mix of guilt and longing. I didn't want Alex. I wanted my husband. I wanted my life back. But my mind wouldn't let me go. It was as if my heart had been fractured, and even though the pieces were being glued back together, the cracks were still visible, still sensitive to the touch. Mark noticed the distance growing between us again. "You're here, but you're not," he said one night, his voice gentle but laced with weariness. "It's like you're a million miles away." He was right. I was physically present, going through the motions of a loving wife. But my heart was a battlefield. I was fighting a war with my own memories, and I was losing. I tried to suppress it. I threw myself into work, into hobbies, into anything that would keep my mind occupied. But the thoughts would always creep back in during the quiet moments. In the car, in the shower, in the dead of night. I was living with the consequences of my choices in a way I never anticipated. I thought ending the affair was the final battle, but I was wrong. The real war was the one inside my own head. One day I was cleaning out an old closet and found a small box. Inside was a collection of mementos from the early days of my relationship with Mark. Ticket stubs from our first movie, a dried flower from our first anniversary, a silly photo from a vacation. As I held them, I wasn't just remembering the good times. I was mourning them. I was mourning the innocence we had lost, the effortless trust that I had shattered. That's when I realized the truth. I had promised Mark a fresh start, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. But a fresh start doesn't mean you get to erase the past. It means you have to learn to live with it. The ghost of my affair wasn't something to be exorcised. It was a part of my story now. A dark, shameful chapter, but a chapter nonetheless. I sat down with Mark that evening, the box of mementos between us. With tears streaming down my face, I confessed everything I had been feeling. The intrusive thoughts, the comparisons, the overwhelming guilt that was keeping me a prisoner. I told him I was still fighting for us, but I was struggling with the ghosts in my own heart. He listened, his expression unreadable at first. I expected anger, or maybe just resignation. Instead, he reached across the table and took my hand. "I know," he said softly. "I've been fighting my own ghosts too. Ghosts of you with him." His confession hit me harder than any accusation could have. We had both been silently battling the shadows of my betrayal, each of us feeling alone in our struggle. In that moment of shared vulnerability, a new kind of intimacy bloomed between us. It wasn't the giddy, naive love of our early years. It was something deeper, more resilient. It was a love forged in fire, tested by betrayal, and now, finally, rooted in a brutal, shared honesty. We realized that starting fresh didn't mean pretending the affair never happened. It meant accepting that it did, and choosing to love each other anyway. It meant acknowledging the scars and working together to heal the wounds, both visible and invisible. The ghost of the past might always live in our house, but we decided it would no longer have a seat at our table. We would learn to live alongside it, not in fear of it, but as a constant painful reminder of the price of betrayal and the true value of forgiveness. Our journey is far from over, but for the first time I believe we are truly on the same path, walking forward, together.